Let's do it.
All right, I'm here with Jay Richard today, a longtime friend. We met each other through the MMA circuit. We're both Michigan residents at one point in time. Now I believe you're living somewhere else in the country. Jay, will you introduce yourself a little bit and just anything you want to go into before we start our conversation today?
Yeah, I live in Indiana now, which has been fun. Like it's definitely an interesting place. I'm enjoying living there. I'll never admit this again, but I kind of miss Michigan. You never
Uh,
get me to say that again, though. um,
we got that
I've
on the
worked with.
record.
Yeah, I was really excited about this opportunity to have this dialogue because as you said, we've known each other for a while. Going way back to my old MMA days before I got old and fat and retired. But it's always been great dialogue. And I've lived in from kindergarten to 12th grade. Dude, I've lived in 22 different. I've went to 22 different schools across this whole country. Dude, I've lived in Michigan, New York, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania. I've lived everywhere, but it's given me an outlook on so many different types of communities and so many different types of demographics all over the country. Because I've lived in rich areas, super poor areas, super country areas, super urban, so it's given me an interesting outlook. And I think, and then you, on the other hand, you've worked with a very diverse group of people, and you continually do and things like that. You live in a very diverse area. So you also have this expanded view of everybody. And I think between the two of us, we can really shed some light on everything that's going on right now, or at least try and progressively find out, all right, so we're all at war with one another now. So how can we stop being at war with one another and start taking steps to move forward? Because there's insight that you can offer, even as a Caucasian guy. There's a lot of insight that you can offer that I'll never know because I've never lived that life, and vice versa. So these things are super important, and people are so afraid to have these uncomfortable conversations. But we need to. That's how we progress forward. Is we have these conversations and go, okay, well, I learned something new, and we really need to. And I'll stop with this part, and then we'll move forward. But we really have to normalize changing your opinion when presented with new information.
1,000%. Man. I mean, if that wasn't the best intro for dialogue that I've had thus far, I don't know what it is. Because if we could get to the point where we can process new information and formulate ideas based on changing facts, now all of a sudden we can progress. That's the entire idea. If you already put your feet in concrete before you engage in a dialogue, you're not going to change regardless of who you speak to. So then why are we even speaking? And we all know we need to have these conversations. So actually, you just alluded to something that I think that is incredibly important. You've lived all over and you've experienced life in many different areas. So it broadens your perspective. You're not someone that lived with a very specific filter where information comes in, your environment shaped you a certain way. Talk a little bit about living in all the different areas. Did you notice common denominators? Let's just say that is such a broad perspective that most people will never have. Most people, at least in this area, they grew up in one spot. They are educated by one small group. They think a certain way. And like you, I lived in 5 or 6 different homes growing up. I lived in Philadelphia, the outskirts of Philadelphia, the suburbs, moved to Michigan. I've been all over the world. So you and I see things a little bit differently than the average person. Just talk a little bit about that. What did you learn growing up with that type of lifestyle?
And I want to make sure, before I continue, there's going to be a lot of times where I may say white. There's going to be a lot of times when I may say black, and I don't use that in a derogatory way. I use it in a descriptive way. So I want to make that clear for anybody who's listening. I don't want anyone to feel alienated by what I'm saying. I don't want anyone to feel stereotyped or anything like that. I just want to make that clear because I understand that this is a very sensitive time for everybody, not just for me or my culture or anything like that, but for everyone. So I want to make that clear. A couple of things I noticed, I've noticed that there are 3 distinct classes. There's the the wealthy, the middle class, and then the lower class. And they're really not all that different from one another. And I'll give a prime example. I used to live in a place called Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's outside of Philly. It's
I know exactly where Allentown is. I've been there a
okay,
ton of
okay,
times.
okay.
I've
So you
been there a
know
ton of times.
that there is, I like the town well enough. It's got, the theme park, but it is an impoverished area. There is
Mhm.
poverty there, things like that. And then we'll take somewhere, I'll say someplace I live that I genuinely love the community, but it'll serve its purpose. Croswell, Michigan. Um, which is a small town, about 2,000 people, mostly Caucasian. Nothing wrong with that. Cool. You know what I mean? They're not so different because the people in Allentown, for example, most of them have never even been outside of Lehigh Valley. Most of them do not know of a world that exists outside of that small little community. And most of them will probably never, so therefore their views are 100% tunnel vision to that reality that they live in. Now you take Croswell, on the other side of the coin, Croswell. Most people there have never left. They've lived there their whole lives. Their families have grown up there. They've never seen anything outside of that. And it's proof that we're not, like, the sides aren't really that different. And the only places that you notice that really have true growth are the places, like, I don't want to say inner cities, but the places that are more populated and mixed and not so far removed from each other. You look at I don't want to say Detroit because dear God, but you look at Grand Rapids, for example, or New York, Miami, things like that, like places that are very, very well integrated with one another are the places that are truly flourishing as far as people working with each other go. I mean, they're still, but I've noticed that they're very similar in their closed-mindedness, very similar. And I've lived in, like, just dear God, everywhere, and everyone's different. The South is a totally different world than the North. Holy crap. It is I mean, in positive ways, but both in negative ways, like, sure, the South has their Southern hospitality, but they also have, their really bad stuff too. But I really learned that people everywhere really aren't that different. We're just so used to only seeing what we know, so we don't know that there's other stuff. Like, I think one of the best things that ever happened to me was moving out of an impoverished area, Allentown, and moving to freaking West Palm Beach, Florida, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to, because I never would have known that place exists outside of books. And seeing that made it attainable. Like, dude, wait a minute, I could live here. This is awesome, and it broadened my horizons. And most people don't get that on both sides, and they don't really get to experience that. So that's part of my experience of moving around.
So what do you do as a career or for work now, Jay? Because I look at you as very successful. You're extremely well spoken. You've obviously traveled all over and you have broad perspectives, and that makes you more powerful in dialogue because you're like, hey, I started here, I went there, I was all over. You just alluded to something awesome. You saw the life in Miami and said, hey, wait a second, there could be a beautiful future that exists for me and I can attain that. What do you do now as a career, and what brought you
Um,
to Indiana?
all right, so I work for a solar company. We just install solar, things like that. But currently, I am in the process of going back to school to pursue my doctorate in astrophysics, so that I can, because I want to. Wrong time, mom. So I can. So I'm gonna pursue also to be like a sixth grade teacher, and I want to take that, and I want to work in inner city schools. Um, but I mean, my company asked me to transfer to Indiana, and I was just like, okay. But yeah, ultimately, that's kind of my end goal. If I could do both, that's great. That'd be ideal. But I want to affect change. In the future generations. I've coached a lot of different sports. Can you not? Sorry. I've I've coached a lot of different sports, and I love interacting with kids, and I'd love to be a part of their future moving forward. But at the same time, I have been very blessed to be with a great company, that has seen a lot of potential in me and allowed me to progress forward. So I'm excited of keeping that train moving too, kind of doing both things at once. So, but yeah, I mean, Education is awesome.
That's one of the reasons I really was looking forward to this dialogue with you, because I can tell from the couple interactions we had in person and multiple online, that you have a lot of genuine love for people. You do care about people. I can get that vibe from you very, very quickly. So it makes sense to me that you want to go into education, because you see that as a way that, hey, me traveling and opening my horizons and taking in new information and allowed me to change my life and go in a good direction. And maybe I can influence other people to do the same. And that's kind of the same path I take. You know a little bit of my background. I don't want to just rant about it, but that's why I work with, kids in the court system all in my town, and kids that don't really see the potential in themselves yet. But I already see it, because I'm someone that went from a depressed, struggling, difficult teenage life to, hey, wait a second, I can shape my future into something worthwhile. So a lot of times when you do that and you go through that transformation in life, you see it in other people, even if they don't see it in themselves yet. You know what I mean? You think, you know what, if I can make you see what I know exists, the world can be better for you.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
one thing I think we can tackle this from a couple angles now. So I've been all over the world, and you've been to a lot of places where you see bad poverty and you see lifestyle that is really tough. Like I was in rural China 4 times, and I've been in the favelas of Brazil, and like the way that the people there live, it'll almost rip your heart out. Yeah, one of the times when I was over with I think it was Zach Shaw and Taylor Moore, we went to an impoverished village in the rural areas of China. And the way that these children live was like, it literally stabs you through the heart just to see that, like, these are human beings that are just born in this area that have to endure this lifestyle. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that poverty exists in so many places. I mean, there's places in this country that, have that hopeless or helpless feeling. It's just, if, like you said, if you grew up in one area right down the street and you never witnessed that, you don't have that perception that, wait a second, there's people living like this. And, when you see it, you can't help, if you're a good person, to not think like, I have to find a way to help people, because what if I was in these conditions? What if my son was in this condition, or my daughter, or my family member? So it really gives you that feeling of, understanding for people's pain. And a lot of times I think when you don't have people that understand what other people are going through, it makes it difficult to have that dialogue that we need right now of in the middle, like, hey, you might not be experiencing atrocities in this country. You might not be experiencing injustice. You might not be experiencing profiling and other things, but some people are. And that's why we need to come together. So where I was going with that is, you see these struggling things, you see these people that are suffering, and it makes you want to take action. But it's difficult because if you don't take action the correct way, you are triggering a very strong emotion, and things can go a bad direction. Because you've got people backing the idea that we should be burning down cities, we should flip police cars, we should attack the police. I've seen on Facebook recently a post from someone that I know, I'm not going to call out in this video, that basically said all police are a fascist, controlling force that is here to oppress people. And like, my cousin, who's like one of the best people I know in my entire life, is an officer in Philadelphia. He just got hit with a can the other day from a riot or something. I'm like, man, that's a phenomenal human being, but I'm not blind. I know there are bad police officers, but there are bad people in every spectrum of life. So the real question is, how do we feel the pain for the people that are being oppressed, that absolutely deserve better treatment, that deserve justice that they are not getting? That, how do we feel that, but then remove that emotion and come up with, like, plans together as people to say, is this a system problem? Is this a bad people problem? Is this a racial problem? Like, how do we move to that next step, which is what we're all looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're experiencing right now, and I've called it this plenty of times with some friends. I'm a huge nerd, obviously. And I've said, America right now is very similar to Gotham City. The people are starting to lose faith in the city to protect them, because injustice is not exclusive to Black people. You know what I mean? It's not. Like, everybody, hell, dude, I mean, we could make an argument that the Second Amendment in general is injustice and unconstitutional. We're not going to get into that now, but I'm saying we all face some type of injustice, and I think the first step of that is identifying responsibility and taking responsibility. for example, I've seen many times, you know, people share back and forth, oh, this guy did this crime, this guy did this crime, and they got two different you know, sentences, you know, this is it's racist, it's, you know, things like that. And I'm like, okay, that right there, people have to take responsibility, because that's not an injustice against that Black person. That's an injustice against the victims of those crimes, you know. And it's very important to establish that, because yes, he got the time he deserved, he didn't. So that's not an injustice to the guy, because he still committed the crime. That's an injustice to the victim of this person's crime. You know, I mean, take Brock Turner, my favorite example. The justice system failed us and failed her. You know what I mean? Like, she has to live for the rest of her life knowing that the justice system said, we don't want to ruin this kid's future. Meanwhile, she's going to have to live the rest of her life with PTSD. She's going to struggle with relationships. She's going to struggle with men. She's going to struggle with all these things now because of that man. And that's what we're dealing with, you know. And to go further into that, you know, I think, I don't know who is pushing a narrative, and I refuse to make a claim, because I don't like spreading information that I don't know for a fact. But this white versus Black narrative has to stop, because that's not what this is about. This is about injustice. And to prove that point, we all saw the video of that elderly man who got pushed out. Absolutely. That made my stomach turn. Like, that one broke me, you know. And to prove that it's not a race thing, today, Black Lives Matter is protesting for that guy. You know what I mean? So that's even more proof that it's not a race thing. So the people that are sharing this, they're just trying to cause a bigger divide. And I think that we all have to realize, like, wait a minute. There's something else going on here. You know, because every time we get closer to unity, something happens that divides us even further. You know, and I've seen a post going around that, you know, we're now, all 50 states have protested, 18 countries, you know. That's strong, dude. That's a strong, that's power, that's unity. It's inspiring. But that also scares the living shit out of whoever is trying to control and manipulate this country. Because we are finally starting to realize that, wait a minute, we're all on the same side here, and there's way more of us than there are of you. You know, the same with people who advocate for the injustices, things like that, racist, all of that good stuff. They are the minority now. They just speak loud enough to seem like the majority, but they are in fact the minority. There's more of us than them, and we're finally starting to realize that, and it's great. And I have to say this next part carefully. I truly feel bad for that old man, but it did help, because it got people who weren't necessarily, I don't want to say on our side, because it's not an our thing, but it enraged them. Like, dude, come on, that is a 78-year-old dude that you just knocked to the floor, and everyone walked by like it wasn't anything at all, you know. And so I think the first step is for everyone to start taking responsibility. You know, like, not all cops are douchebags, not all Black people are criminals, and not all white people are racist. But we need to start condemning the ones that are, you know, and we have to start policing each other too. You know what I mean? Like, I've tried to explain to some of my white friends, I've said, you know, as a friend, if I'm your friend and you claim you care about me as a person, then it is your job to defend me in my absence. So if you see someone, you know, saying something racist or doing something racist or anything like that, you have a responsibility as someone who cares about me and who is receiving care from me to at least say something. At least be like, hey, bro, that's not cool. You know, you have the right to feel however you want, but not around me. I would appreciate if you didn't do that. You know, Black people, you know, we have to take responsibility too, and police each other. You know, like, hey, you know, maybe, you know, like a lot of guys, I work with a guy, I didn't work with him, excuse me, it was a friend of mine's son, and, you know, I used to take him around with me all the time. He's a grown-ass man, dude. I used to take him around all the time with me and show him that, because he wanted to be a drug dealer. And I'm like, look, I understand that drug money is quick money and stuff like that. But guess what? I prefer money, even if it takes me a little longer to get it. I prefer money that nobody could take away except for stupid taxes. But either way, you know what I mean? So we have to start helping each other as well, you know, and then the cops, you know, hey, guess what, dude? Like in that video, what enraged me so much, you know, I served in the military, things like that. There is nothing, no rank, no power, nothing short of physically beating my ass that you could do to get me to walk by an old man whose ears are bleeding all over the concrete from something we did to arrest a guy holding a cardboard. There's nothing you could do to me. You'd have to beat my ass in front of everyone to get me to not immediately focus all my attention on that guy. So I feel like that is a huge first step, is everyone's got to start taking accountability and not allowing these bad people to just continue doing their stuff. Because they're all, like you said, they're everywhere, but we have to start policing each other, because we get into a situation where if white people police black people, they're racist. If black people police white people, they're way too aggressive. So, okay, fine. Being we can't handle the responsibility of policing each other, guess what? You police your people. You know what I'm saying? You police your people. You police your people. And then everyone is policing each other. And then we can move forward, because if you're too sensitive to allow it to go back and forth, like, and the emotion is huge. It's like you said, you know, I don't know if it's very Libra of me, but I have a very easy time removing my own emotions from making decisions and from talking about things, because emotion, while it's great, it can drive your passion, but it can also cloud your judgment. You know what I mean? Like, you know, even in a fight, you know, we've both been in the MMA thing, you know, you got to keep your head clear, dude. You go in there with a clouded mind, you're stressed out about stuff, it's going to throw you off. And that's the same thing. We have to, emotion is great when you use it as passion or as motivation, but you can't let it cloud you. And right now, everyone's just angry, you know, and it's really hard to get a point across because everyone's angry, everyone's pissed, everyone's hurt. It's really unfortunate, but I think that's a great first step, is we really have to start policing each other and getting rid of that, because it's us against evil, not black against white. It's everyone versus stupid people.
You just hit the nail on the head so accurately for anything that I could have said to captivate how I was feeling about this event. Like, because I witnessed that video too. And you even described the feeling. I felt sick to my stomach watching an elderly person. I don't care what color, religion, none of those things matter. I watched an elderly man get shoved to the ground, bounce his head off of concrete, which could easily have ended his life. And then I witnessed like complete injustice that don't even check on him. Don't even care for that man. Don't even realize you messed up. Maybe you just meant to back him up as you thought he was interfering with what you're about to do. You severely injured or possibly killed him, and then did not show compassion as a human being. Like, oh my God, that was not my intention. It was almost like watching a robot do something and then not be able to process emotion about what it just did. You know what I mean? And that is definitely a madness that we can all stand against. But like you said, there's a certain dynamic now in society where you're almost afraid to call out a bad person if they're not the same color, not the same religion, or any of these things. If we don't get rid of that, like as a black man, if I did something like that in public, I would 100% hope that you would call me out and say, how dare you do that to a person, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Like, it should just be open dialogue between what is right and what is wrong. And that's personal responsibility. It doesn't mean if I saw a white man do that, I would be just as infuriated at him as I was if it was an Asian man or a Latin man or a black man, anything. It doesn't matter to me. I watched someone that could have easily controlled that situation harm an elderly man. You know what I'm saying?
Dude.
Yeah, it was madness to witness, just like it was madness for me to witness this George Floyd incident. Like, I had so many questions that I still haven't found the answers for. And I will openly say this on video, I asked the wrong question. So you know me as a jiu-jitsu coach. I've spent 15 years studying the arts of how to put someone unconscious, strangulation, asphyxiation. I've studied it to the fullest degree that if you're in my jiu-jitsu class and someone's trying to strangle you with all they got, I can show you little ways to maintain consciousness. Because, so the only area that I felt I had expertise in that event was, hey, I don't think a knee on the neck without something else involved should kill someone. I want to know why that man died. I shouldn't have expressed that till I looked at the entire event, because I want to know why were 3 police officers holding down a man that does not have a weapon, who is already handcuffed. You've completely eliminated the threat. You have him now in broad daylight. And from what my eyes can judge, you're basically torturing him because he is no longer a threat to you. He cannot harm you. You have a full squad there. You have people pleading for you to show that man mercy, regardless of his background, regardless of any of these things. What were you doing? And then the conversation has so many other moving parts. But like I said, just by questioning the one part of the story that I didn't understand, it turned into a massive, you must be against George Floyd, or you must be, and that is not even semi-close to reality. I said, if my father had passed away the same way and there was the video, I would be going, what in the world actually happened to him? Why were the police doing what they're doing? All the questions I just asked would be repeated the same way. It's my brain only can think in forms of, I need to figure out the truth of things. I need to break them down to the smallest element. And then I need to come up with plan of action. Like, how do you prevent these things in the future? Is it police training? Is it racism within a group of people? Is it, what is it that causes these things? Because I don't know any human being on the planet that sees that happen and doesn't think, why did that just happen in this country? Why did that just take place? But then it sparked this, like you said, this emotional outrage where the dialogue becomes incredibly difficult to have because you're so cautious to say the wrong thing, where it's like, no, man, take out color from that situation, and I would have the exact same questions. But now, across the nation, I'm hearing about defund the police. Police need to be, this, that, or the other thing. The Minneapolis Police Department burned down. A survey just released before you and I talked said over 50% of people support that. Okay, there can be bad officers, just like there can be bad white, black, purple, yellow, name any religion. There can be bad people. That we need to, like you said, take personal responsibility to call out people that do bad things, because we shouldn't have that in society. But when you turn that, imagine if I'm an officer, if you're an officer, now all of a sudden, because of something that someone did, we get shot like the man in Las Vegas. Someone went up, put a gun to his head, and shot him for simply wearing a uniform. I know that people work in symbols. You know what I mean? Like they see an American flag, and the people that appreciate things in this country see that as, hey, there are flaws, but I appreciate my country. And people that feel oppression and anger look at that and say, hey, you represent that anger of this country.
Exactly, yeah.
But that doesn't move us in a good direction, because now all of a sudden that's where, just as bad as racism and injustice, stereotyping is a problem. And if you think that it's okay to say, hey, we need to focus on the racial issues, but then you stereotype police, you're feeding into a cycle of more problems. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden a couple of good cops get killed, and now they're carrying emotion, so that the next time, or people around them, they're killed. People around them, me or you just witnessed our partner die at the last riot. He got shot. And now the next time that people try to peaceably assemble, we might have a ton of emotion built up from what we just witnessed. And it just keeps driving this problem further and further. We're just digging a hole. We need to be honest. Like you said, look at people and say, we're going to call you out for your actions. I mean, everybody in my life knows if you tried to be racist around me, I would call you out on the spot, never allow it, and be like, we don't welcome that here. Do you see the "We Are All One" painted on my wall? You see every flag of every nation. You see that I don't care what religion you have. I care about, are you a good person? That's what matters. As soon as we start to dissect it further than that, you know what? James, you can't speak on this, you're white. Jay, you can't speak on that, you're black. This person, you can't speak on that, you're not an officer. We're actually ruining the ability to do what you and I are doing right now and say, hey, man, what's right and what's wrong? And how do we get there? How did we end up where we are right now?
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, I want to go back for a second, because I said something and I didn't articulate myself correctly. So I want to make sure I said it straight. When I said, okay, you guys police your own people, that's not me pushing separatism. That's me saying, hey, as an American citizen, I'm going to trust you to have my back in my absence and police your own people. And you can trust me in your absence to do the same. So it's not separatism. I don't want anyone to take me out of context and think I'm saying, oh, white people over there, black people over there. That's not what I mean. I mean, when I'm not around, I want you to say the same thing that you would say to somebody if I was standing right next to you. So I think moving forward, so police. Let's talk
That's a
about
great next topic to get onto. Let's talk about how do police operate correctly.
Yeah. So my original, career path, after military and privatizing and all of that was I went to school for criminal justice and things like that. This is all around the time that I knew you. That's kind of what I was doing. I was in the process of DPD actually, and I 100%. Now, you and I are both in the MMA world. Choking is a very interesting thing. I've seen in a lot of these incidents, a lot of chokeholds that are poorly executed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, and I defer to you. Like, sure, we both coach MMA, but I defer to your excellence. You were a lot further along than what I was in this. But I think what people don't understand, and I have a point that I'm leading to, is that a choke isn't meant to cut off the air supply of breathing. It's meant to cut off the carotid arteries, which stops blood flow to the brain, which causes you to pass out. So if your choke is cutting off air supply, you are doing it incorrectly. Is that accurate? I want to make sure.
That's a great description. There's two forms of chokes. There's strangulations, which is exactly what you're referring to, that restrict a certain amount of blood flow, which causes the pass out effect. And then there's asphyxiation, which literally is like if I covered your mouth and nose until the point where you lost enough oxygen, or like if you were underwater. If you couldn't get breath underwater, your blood flow is perfectly normal. But if you were to pass out from that, that's asphyxiation. So there's two forms. And I think a lot of people don't know really how to apply one or the other. They don't really understand the differences. And now mix that with situations with extreme stress and people not being trained well, I think a lot can go wrong.
Yeah. So, and I'm leading to that because for example, let's go way back to Michael Gardner, the dude in New York who got put in the original I can't breathe guy. That cop, he went in there, threw him in the rear naked choke, and it was just all kinds of sloppy. I'm not gonna get into the statistics of his arms were short, the guy's neck. It doesn't matter. We both know, you and I both know how a rear naked choke could be applied, and that was a very sloppy one. So my problem is you learned that somewhere. Who gave you that information, and why didn't they teach you properly? I do think that a lot of these dealings are the lack of proper training. And I think that police forces, for example, should work with people like you or your gym and go, okay, how can we learn how to restrain someone in a way that's sure, you know what? I'm okay, bro. If a guy's super resistant and he's becoming a threat, you gotta give a little bit of pain to get the point. You know what I mean? Fine. I understand that. You know what I mean? But the lack of training, and a old partner of mine, and I'm not gonna say his name, I'll let him be nameless, whatever the case may be. He told me, he said, he said, think about it. What are most cops trained to use? Their firearm. From the day they get into the academy, it's just their firearm. They go to the range every day. So if you're only taught that, the second you get into a hostile situation, what's the first thing you're gonna reach for? It's your firearm. And we really need police really, and I'm not saying anything negative about police, dude. I'm not. Like, sure, I have really hard stances on certain things, like if an unarmed person makes you scared for your life, you shouldn't be a cop.
Yeah. 100%.
And
simple
and I don't mean that disrespectfully, dude. Like, if an unarmed civilian makes me scared for my life, this isn't the career path I should be in. Not being disrespectful, it is what it is. But I think training is important because, dude, off the top of your head, okay, don't even really think about it. I'm gonna ask you a question off the top of your head. You can give me a spitball here. How many maneuvers could you think of off the top of your head to restrain someone and get them to the ground without killing or injuring them?
Oh man, I could list 100.
You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. So the ability is there. It's just the teaching isn't, and I don't know if it's a lack of willingness, or like I've taken defensive tactics classes. I've learned how to do, the duck and all that good stuff. But I took one class during college, you know what I mean, and one class during, I think hand-to-hand combat is a very important thing that they need to start introducing. So I don't know. I mean, maybe a solution, like maybe, you, for an example, can talk to local police department, go, hey, how would you guys feel about us hosting a clinic once a month, you know what I mean, to get some police officers in here to try, get some hand-to-hand combat training. And I say you because obviously, you have a very credible business and everything like that. So I wonder.
It's funny you say that because
that
actually for the last maybe 5 years, I've tried on multiple occasions. I had local Livingston County sheriffs. I'm not going to name the people in particular, but I had the people that make the decisions to like train other police officers come in, train with me. I absolutely, showed these people that their experience in controlling the human body is so limited. I mean, we're talking 230-pound guys that lift, that are powerful, that within 15 seconds, I have in a point where I can take their life from them. You know what I mean? I say, listen, obviously I'm a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. This is my 17th year, 18th year coming up. You're not going to encounter that often, but it shows you how limited you are in the world of body control, self-defense, grappling situations. If I grab a hold of you, you don't really know how to react. And with that being said, I've tried so hard because I thought there was a dangerous recipe when you have people that aren't confident in hand-to-hand altercations and you give them a weapon that can take someone's life. Because in their mind, they're like, I want to go home to my family and my kids. And if you attack me and I don't have the tools to stop you, I have a tool that can stop you. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that get tasered or get maced or get the hell beat out of them because the other person, that's their emotional, you know what it's like to be in a fight. We train to be in a fight, so we're pretty level-headed. Most people do not. When they get into a fight, it is a bull seeing red, blindly. Hey, stop trying. Hey, stop trying to harm me. So I've tried so hard to get through to the police, and for some reason, I just have not been able to. And maybe this could be a catalyst for change, because I think you just hit a nail on the head that if we had better trained police officers that were more like, if somebody starts screaming in my face, I don't even get the butterfly feeling, because you're not a professional fighter. You don't even know what's about to take place if we go down that road. So I'm able to stay level-headed and just talk to, hey man, relax, let's talk, okay? But if I didn't have that training, I would probably be the typical oh my God, my life's in danger, blindly swing, So maybe during madness like this, there is an opportunity where we can be honest, like police can be honest, and many other people on all aspects of this debate can be honest and say, hey, these are things we need to do better. Because I absolutely believe that police being afraid or thinking that someone is a threat when really they're not would absolutely contribute to, like you said, you spend all your time shooting a gun, they give you a tool and they say, this tool will keep you alive in a bad situation. You're trained in it all the time, you're shooting it, you desensitize the effect. I don't believe if someone robs a store, man, at the worst part of your life, you've probably done things you're not proud of. If you had a son, he's going to do things that are mistakes. I don't believe in stealing someone's life. Let's say that teenage kid, you know what, he robbed a store and you shoot him. I can't even make that argument as a human being. Man, we have systems in place where he'll be fined, he'll get probation, he might get a 90-day jail sentence if he stole enough. I don't know, but we have systems in place. If you pull a trigger and take that person's life from them, you just said that one mistake, you taking something out of a store, was worth you no longer existing, was worth the pain of your family and everything that we're going to cause. I don't believe in any of that stuff, but I believe we have to shift the way that people think about crime, about training, about altercations, about justice, because how is that justice? I mean, it happens, you see it all the time, and then people online will say, hey, they shouldn't have been breaking the law.
It's but is that law that he broke worth a life sentence? Death? No, it's not, dude.
Even murder doesn't get a life sentence in most cases. So wait a second.
And we also need, and honestly, I feel like we need, and I really want cops to really start being more proactive, because it doesn't hurt their cause when you see, I'll use two different examples. You see people like George Floyd, obviously, who died. And then you got Dylan Roof. We all remember him. The guy who shot up the church in Texas, the black church in Texas, I think it was. Yeah,
I do remember that
guy. And he got orange juice. He made it back safely. So a guy who walks in and shoots up a building doesn't immediately get gunned down, but then you look at so many, so it doesn't help. So they need to do a better job at addressing those things, because it's like, you know, one, it doesn't help. I'm not saying that they are going out of their way to be racist, you know what I mean? But I am saying it doesn't help your process, you know, like you guys gotta do better. And I don't hate police. The only thing I truly hate about police is that I don't like the idea that when I see a police officer, I feel anxiety. When I see it, and honestly, that's everybody. I don't care who you are, white, black. Whenever you see a cop car, you're like, what is he going to pull me over for now? You know what I mean? I don't want that anxiety. I should be like, dude, there's a cop here. I'm safe. That's the only thing I don't like about cops, and that's nothing against them personally. That's just you know, they have their quota. They got to get their tickets to get better funding, to get, you know, there's a whole line of stuff that goes from there. But that's the only thing I truly hate about cops is just when I see you, I want to feel happiness, not anxiety. And that's not even exclusive to me as a black guy.
No, can you imagine if we felt that way? If when you saw police, you were like, oh man, this area is safer because we have someone that is trained in physical combat, who has a firearm, who does everything in their power to try to make sure that the community is better and safe. That type of narrative would be unbelievable. That'd be a beautiful thing for the country. But we would have to spend a lot of time being honest, working out, you know, bad people from the system, working out, you know, parts of the system that promote these things. And we would have to go back to almost square one of saying, hey, this is what it means to become a police officer. This is the training you're going to go through. These are the evaluations you're going to go through. This is the scrutiny that you're going to be under. We are going to closely monitor your interactions with people, because a lot of the times these police officers that take someone's life, they have a long history of pushing boundaries well beyond, you know, what they should. And then, because I remember there was a video of a gentleman who was like a pest exterminator in a hallway. I don't know if you remember that on a white man on his knees begs for his life with this.
Yeah.
And he made one mistake in a command. I think he was supposed to like put his hand up, and he went down, and his
pants fell, and he went to pull up his pants so he could crawl forward. And blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude,
listen,
like you guys aren't helping.
You were called for suspicion for a man who was, oh my God, and you ended his life. He's crying in the hallway, emotional. That's someone's son, brother. Doesn't matter. We have to start changing the way that these things go down, man. And I think what you and I are doing right now is the start. If everybody came, as soon as you start saying, fuck the police and, you know, these pieces of shit need to, you are creating a bigger divide. And you know what? That feeling that you or I might get when we see an officer, we go, oh, is this going to go good or bad? They're going to get that then when they see people going, wait a second, is this person for me? Are they against me? Are they going to attack me? Do they think my life matters? Do they think that I'm the enemy? It's just hate and injustice, and all these things make us have this bigger gap. And it's like having a more volatile mixture for disaster.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, you know, I think the police need to start doing, like, the police need to take responsibility for something else too. They have to stop doing things that make us stop trusting them. And I'll give you an example. We've all seen the black on black cars that really have no insignia on them just to catch us speeding. You know what I mean? We all see the cops hiding in the little clever stuff. Stop doing things that make us not trust you, you know, because that just feel like you're just trying to trap me, dude. Like, I've seen cars that literally have no insignia on the left side and all the police stuff on the right side so they can park it a specific way just to catch me as I'm speeding. Granted, don't break the law. I understand that. But that doesn't help the people trust you when we think that you're using sneaky and underhanded tactics to antagonize us, you know, because, like, sure, is doing 10 over really worth it? A lot of times it's not, you know what I mean? But they got to stop doing things that because I want the people to trust the police, but when we feel like the police are against us because they do stuff like that, it doesn't help. I'm all for unmarked cars when it comes to drug busts, things like that, because, you know, safety and covert. But for traffic stops, if you look at any other country in the world, those police are like the brightest thing. They want you to know they're there, and they want you to know we're safe. But in America, we're like, you know what I mean? We're like, no, I don't. And so we have to do that. And, you know, every side has their responsibility, but there's just a list specifically for them because that's who we're
So we all
about right
know
now,
we need to have further conversation about how do police operate effectively in this country so that we trust them and we value them. Because honestly, like I would love nothing more than to value police officers and say, hey man, you're doing a job that is risky. You do put your life on the line because you are more likely to come across criminals of every, just criminals. The word criminals, you're more likely to come across them than me just living my normal life or you living your normal life. And we can appreciate that. I want to work in that direction. So one of the things I kind of want to shift to, actually, it's funny. I just got pulled over 2 days ago. I was driving out to do a podcast. I was driving out to do a podcast, and I have a Mustang Cobra. It's all blacked out. The tint's too dark. I get it. So I'm on 96. It's my third day bringing it out for the summer. Like I'm brand new. I haven't even driven the car. I pulled it out my driveway. I want to clean it, and I'm driving down 96. And it's dark, it sounds nice, it's supercharged. Sure enough, I drive by exactly what you're talking about. There's someone really tucked away in this perfect spot. And as soon as I pass them, they pull out. And I'm like, yep, I'm getting pulled over.
Son of a bitch.
So he comes up behind me. And the funny thing is, as soon as he pulls up behind me, a Michigan State police officer, I just pulled over to the side of the road. Didn't even wait for him to turn his light. I was like, hey, you know what? My tint's too dark. I'm not even speeding at the point. But you know what? Let's just make this super easy. So I pull right over. He comes up and he said, I pulled you over. And I said, yeah, I understand. Like, what do you need from me? I'm keeping it super simple. And he goes, well, your plates are expired. First of all, like, you couldn't have known that when I drove past you. But like my tint was illegal. So fine. Like, I am not disputing being pulled over. I don't have anything to hide. No problem. But you didn't pull me over because of my plates. You pulled me over because you saw a dark car that said, hey, wait a second. I wonder if that guy's a problem. Fine. I don't even care. So we go through the whole interaction, and I give him my license, I give him all my information, and he did let me go because he's like, hey, you're not speeding, your tint is a little dark, but you have no criminal record. I'm gonna let you go. So he went with discretion. And now, of course, some people might hear that and go, well, what if Jay got pulled over? Maybe, we don't know, but the interaction did go very well. So when I experience things like that, I'm like, hey, I can appreciate you technically could have, given me a fine for my tint right there. You could have been like, hey, your plates are expired. Well, with the plates expired because of COVID, the things have been closed, and I just brought it out for the summer, so I couldn't have updated them. So he understood that. He goes, hey, you know what? As soon as they open, you need to get them updated. And I was like, yeah, it's my summer car. I don't drive it. It's Michigan. Try to drive a Cobra in the winter, you're going nowhere.
Yeah, no.
But it was a good experience. And if we could reshift the idea that, like, hey, when you see police, if you're not a criminal and you're doing the right thing, regardless of any color or anything like that, they can be an ally to you. That would be wonderful, man. You and I would support that to the ends of the earth. Wait a second. You're telling me when I know police are around, it's going to be better for me? I'm safer. My community is safer. All of a sudden, that's a good direction. So that's one part of the story that if we can work there, I think everybody would support that idea, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, yeah.
The second thing I think we need to get to is, we had a Black Lives Matter protest in Howell. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go because everyone says Howell has this horrible history of racism. Cohocton was where there was like a former KKK leader. So I'm like, man, like I don't support that stuff to the tiniest degree. And what I was afraid of was if you get a good group of people going there to say like, hey, Black Lives Matter, and you have racist people show up, it could turn very bad. And like, that's my city. It's where I have my gym now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not responsible for the history there, but I also understand there was a history. So I went to the protest, and it was actually like very, very uplifting. I put up like a real short video. People were treating people kindly. There were a few incidents that I heard claims about that I didn't witness, but like I did witness some guy drive by and give his middle finger out the truck. But in my mind, that doesn't encapsulate the city. That makes me go, man, what's wrong with that guy? Like, well, what have you experienced in your life where you look at people protesting for the rights of other people and you think that is a problem to you? I see that.
That's worth a middle finger.
Yeah,
that's worth a middle finger.
It makes me want to dissect, like, what's wrong with this guy? But that's the same way when I meet someone that's 35 years old that's just an asshole, I actually don't get mad at that person at all. I think, how are you 35 years old and you haven't found something yet in your life that makes you enjoy this life, that makes you value the people around you, that makes you want to treat people correctly? Because I don't really see good, happy people going around trying to destroy other people or holding their middle finger out their window. I just don't see it. So with that being said, protest happens in downtown Howell. It's seems to be going really, really well. And I'm like, man, this is wonderful. And one of my friends is there. I run into him, I see him, and he's very, very adamantly supporting it, which I'm like, that's awesome. And he's a white man, and he's got his fist in the street. He's got a sign. He's got all these things. And him and I are talking, and he's saying, hey, this can be impactful and provide massive change. You should stand here with your fist up. And I was like, hey, I came here to support, but I want to be careful. Like, I don't understand every moving aspect of this protest. So I'm saying I believe in all human rights. I believe in these things. But let's say that Black Lives Matter supported we should burn down all police stations. Like, I won't stand for that. Like, I'm in this weird gray area where I say, I believe every human being's life matters. I believe some people in this country do not get fair treatment, and we need to address that. I believe that injustice is a massive problem. I believe that police officers deserve way better training so that they can be more effective, so that we understand better. But when all of a sudden, when we get people super emotional, this is where, sorry, I was leading to a point just like you were earlier. And my point is, I witnessed two types of protesters. I witnessed one group of protesters that I truly felt have love in their heart and compassion and feel the pain of other people. And they are there to say, like, listen, if my voice can matter in this country, I do not support these injustices. And I will side with that to the ends of the earth. But I also felt another group of people that it felt like anger and frustration and oppression and all of these negative emotions are fueling them standing there saying this matters, but they're 100% behind. I'm not going to say names, but a couple people that I spoke to were behind. Let's destroy a city. Let's burn these things down. All police, you know what, if they get killed, it is what it is. And that is a problem too, because if we're not honest, like all the way back in the beginning of our conversation, for personal responsibility to say, wait a second, there are lines. And although this movement should be born in the heart of human beings deserve better. And right now in America, there are problems that we need to fix. But as soon as we get out of that and we start suggesting that, you know what, because these things happen, let's commit these crimes or let's attack these group of people, we're almost not better than the injustice that you and I are speaking about. Imagine if, you know, because I felt oppressed in any way, I go out and kill someone, or I go out and burn someone's, you know, house down, or that, you know, maybe they are injured or they're not. Am I not a part of the problem? I understand the idea that, like, well, we have to be heard, but I don't know if that creates change in the right direction, man. I think that creates more anger and more negative emotion that will fuel bigger problems, back to the divide that you spoke on.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I'll be 100% transparent, you know, and I haven't always shared this aspect of how I felt over the last couple of days, just because I understand how quickly people can take words that I say out of context and stuff. But I was very upset, and I remember my best friend texted me. She said, you know, how do you feel about the riots? And I'll tell you exactly what I said. Exactly what I said, because I want to be fully
honesty
transparent.
that you're willing to have. Can you imagine if people across society were just openly honest and we all work together?
Exactly. I feel like in order for people to trust that I have the right motives, I have to be transparent. You know, and my exact words were, I said, if we have to burn this entire country down city by city so that a new one free of racism and injustice will rise from its ashes, then so be it. And now I backed down from that a little bit because it's really militant and really aggressive, but I was also angry and I was lashing out at my anger. So now I'm to the point where I don't necessarily, and I never truly meant it as burn, as in like, let's set everything on fire.
I think you metaphorically meant, let's take down what is currently here and do better.
Yeah, like if we have to destroy this society that we have all been living in so that we can create a new one where everyone can live happily, let's do it. Let's go. You know, and I think that, so as far as the rioting, you know, no one who truly supports this cause condones the rioting, you know. So, and I have to speak people who are on the other side, because there's people various, you know, we've never asked you to and I use you as a general, not you. We've never asked you to support or condone the rioting. We only ask that you understand how it got to this point. You know what I mean? Like, we don't agree with looting and rioting, but we understand how it got to this point. And I think that the people on the other side, they have to look at this. Okay, let's take Colin Kaepernick. That's where, I'm not gonna say that's where it started, but I'm gonna use that as my starting point, you know. And I'm gonna compare in many ways, you know, him and you. Colin Kaepernick did his research on a subject and decided to make a decision on that didn't hurt anyone. It may have offended some people, it may have made people feel a certain way, but it did not hurt a single person. You know what I mean? And he did that, just like you did with the gym thing. You didn't hurt anybody. You did it exactly what you were supposed to. You know, you did research on the subject and said, this is a decision I'm making. It doesn't affect anybody else except for the people that choose to have it affect them. Move forward. That's fine. That's perfect. You know, but then the people who called you, I stayed out of it. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, I don't have anything good to say. So I'm just not against you, but, you know, I just don't like people but dude, they were going off on you. That's not the right way, because you didn't do anything. Same thing with Kaepernick. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't do anything wrong. Yes, some people can feel that kneeling for the anthem is wrong. I'm not even going to get into that discussion because that's a whole nother whatever. You have the right to feel that way, but he also has a right to feel the way he does. So then when he gets told, hey, bro, don't do that. So then we'll move forward. Let's say LeBron James, when he made a comment about it, he was told you should just shut up and dribble. So that was 2 times directly in a row that a peaceful protest or a talk was tried, and then it continued escalating and moving forward. So, like, the message that I have for that is, you know, we don't want you to support and condone the destruction of property. We just want you to be like, okay, I see how it got to that point. Because
I'm really glad you brought that up.
Admitting honesty.
No, man, that's so honest. I'm glad you brought that up, because actually I got into like really heated arguments with my own family members when that kind of thing took place. So I went over, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was elderly people in my family. And, you know, around my family, I try to think like, you know, please don't ever say anything. Like, here's what I say. I try not to challenge my family members that much unless they say something that I'm like, that's wrong. Don't ever say that. But like, in general, you know, opinions, like if you were like, hey, you know, I didn't like that he kneeled during the anthem, I wouldn't attack you. I mean, and I don't mean physically. I mean, like, I wouldn't really go blah, 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 because I supported it. But when they start saying, like, can you believe that that man did this during the anthem? Now, from their mind, they're thinking, you know what, you're disrespecting the troops or all that nonsense. Here's how I looked at that. That is a man who built his life to become super successful, that was an influential man, who was living the dream, who had an unbelievable platform. And with that platform, he chose to say, you know what? I'm going to take a stand against something that really matters to me, against something that is so important for my people, for people in general, for this nation, that I'm going to kneel. And like, it's a silent protest to say, listen, we got to do better. I thought that was the most beautiful thing. And so I got into big arguments with my family because they're going, you should never kneel during the anthem. And I said, I think if you looked into what that man was doing, you would see someone with that platform was willing to risk any type of scrutiny to stand up for human beings that he didn't know because of things that were taking place. That is exactly what this country should be an embodiment of. That is the First Amendment in its most beautiful form, with someone of a massive platform saying, can we do better, people? Like, you know what? I know you like watching football. I know you take pride in the anthem, but can we do better for our people? That is the most prime example of what I would ask for. And like you said, he didn't make traction. You had people burning his jersey and saying, I mean, there was clear side. There was people that either really supported him or there was people that really were against him. But I think if we could get to what you and I are doing right now, like let's say we could wind the clock back before all this madness, go back to the Colin time where he put his knee down, and people were able to take their emotion out and say, okay, why is this gentleman who is making tons of money, who has a platform, who has a life that most people will only dream about, why is he kneeling during something that is considered sacred in the nation? And if they looked into it and said, wow, he's actually just taking a silent knee after speaking to a military member because it's a way for him to say, we can do better in the nation, and I would love if my people would stand up for that. And I mean my people as human beings. Like, if people would say we can do better, that would be unbelievable. But that gets back to the idea that before you get outraged, before you decide we should burn down a school, or we should burn down a police, location, or we should burn down a store or loot things. What if we just took emotion out and said, what are the problems we're facing? And what can we do to be better? Because we absolutely have the ability to do so. You and I speaking just like this, if this happened on a national level where we said, please, we need to meet in this middle ground before more damage occurs, before more lives are lost, before more police brutalize citizens, we need to come together. And there's a problem where emotion fuels people. And emotion, as you alluded to, clouds judgment. It makes you go, I'm feeling this way. Like you said, burn the entire nation to the ground, and from the ashes we will arise anew. When I hear those words from you, I know that you're a good man, and I know you're a good person. So I remove all of my emotions of, imagine if I didn't know you at all and I heard that, I'd say, oh my God, he wants to burn my house down and kill me.
Yeah,
But no, I instantly detached my emotion. And when I heard those words, all I heard was, currently what exists in society, if we could completely crumble and take that apart and build a new world where people truly experience equal rights and justice under the law, I would fight for that. And you know what? When I hear those words, I said, I will fight for that to the ends of the earth too. But it's all about remove emotion, find meaning, meet in the middle, look at people across from you as you're a James living a different life with a different skin color, and I'm a Jay living a different life with a different skin color. We're both people, man. You had a mother and a father. We were born to some human beings. We grew up somewhere. You moved 20 sometimes. I moved 7 or 8 times. And that is the key. So I think we have to get out of this team mentality. Like even in politics or religion or any other, aspect that divides people, people just want to pick a team and they're on their team. And everyone on the other side is the enemy. And in a weird way, that almost disempowers you, because now it's not about the system that's been in place for hundreds or thousands of years that has kept things moving towards the future that the people at the top kind of want to control. And that's, I don't want to get into conspiracy theory or anything like that. But what I mean is
we could go for days.
Of course. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. Yeah. Maybe there, whatever. All it means is if I see you as the enemy to me, we're going to have a lot harder time making progress, because you are entitled rights in this country. You live in this country. You deserve the pursuit of happiness, and so do I. So if I see you as the enemy to me, all of a sudden, all your ideologies, I don't want to break down for the meaning. I don't want to hear the words that you say and say, no, that's a good man that is just saying, we need to do a better job. Or Colin taking a knee instantly, if I see him as the enemy, why would you ever do that? We're not making the progress that we're capable of doing. We need to say, now can be a time for change that I want, you want, and many other people want. You know who don't want it is bad human beings. But you know who we need to not listen to is bad human beings. We have a chance for change in front of us. And what we need to do is come together. We need to be honest. And we need to, I really admire your honesty right there when you were willing to, on this video, because who knows how many people are going to see this. A video that just went up with me 3 days ago has 12,000 views. Who knows what this is going to get? What that means is you were able to say, listen, during emotion, I said things that I want to clarify. And if that was a common theme, man, like the world's not that hard to change, Jay. It's not that hard. We make it.
Yeah, again, normalize changing your opinion when presented with new information.
Back to the beginning of the conversation.
Like it's totally okay to go, okay, now that I've had time to think about it, I've let cooler minds prevail. I'm not angry anymore. This is how I view it. And there's a lot of things that we can work on both sides, but I feel most of it now, you know what? I'll talk about the different sides for just a second.
Perfect.
I'll start with Black people. When confronted with racism and ignorance and things like that, you must first educate. That is very important to me. Every racist incident that I've ever had, I have attempted to educate, because right now you're ignorant, you don't know any better. It was how you were taught. This is the only thing that you know. Fine. I am going to give you the knowledge. Now, once I've given you the knowledge, now I've also given you accountability, because now you have the choice to now either become a good person based off of the information that I gave you and change, or remain a bad person. And guess what? If you decide to stay a bad person, now you're over here. So we must educate first. Okay, that is a huge thing that I can't stress enough. Like people ask me, "Oh, how come you just go off when I got?" I'm like, because I have to educate him first. And I argue with people all day long, but I argue in a way that I'm going to provide information, because once I give you that, you are responsible for your decisions now. You know, it's just like MMA. You know what I mean? If I teach you the arm, you know, a rear naked choke, you are now responsible for how you use that moving forward. Because if you did not have the knowledge, you wouldn't have any responsibility. I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying. You know what I mean? So knowledge is super important. We have to. Now let's go to the other side. You know, I've noticed, and this is just me speaking from my perspective, this is not stereotyping this. I've noticed that a lot of people on the other side of the bargain, it's a pride and a guilt thing in some ways. And what I mean by that is a lot of white people that I know, you know, and I'm gonna speak personally for people I know, so that way I'm not stereotyping anybody. This is only exclusively my interactions. Anything that exists outside of these interactions, I cannot speak on. You know, I've noticed that a lot of them say things like, "Oh, you know, white privilege isn't a thing," and it's okay. But the problem is that it does exist. But it's not your fault. You're not a bad person because of it. You can't help it. So you don't have to feel guilty. No one's asking you to feel guilty. We're only asking that you acknowledge that it exists and use it to help us get on level playing ground. That's it. We don't want you to feel bad about being white. We don't want you to hate being white. We just want to say, hey, bro, look, it's cool, dog. Help me get help me get up there too. You know, so you don't, because guilt turns into anger. Because if you feel guilty, now you feel wrong. And now I'll go on the pride method. Because I've noticed a lot of people, so switching to pride, oh, the one I hate, dude, like I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Whenever, if you correct somebody and they go, you're just being sensitive. You know what I mean? I'm sure we've heard it. We've all heard
absolutely.
it. You know, people are just being overly sensitive, and it's like, no. Perhaps people aren't. Perhaps nowadays people aren't being more sensitive. Maybe we're just starting to realize that the shit we've always said and the shit we've always done is really hurtful to people. Like I was watching an old movie, man, dude. I've been watching some movies from the 90s, and I'm like, bro, I don't know how this movie would have survived in this day and age. You know, because 100%. We're learning that some of that behavior isn't acceptable. Now you can grow from that and learn. Like, for example, I'll give you an example about my life. I'll be transparent. You know, the Me Too movement is one of my favorite movements that exists right now, because it has showcased that a lot of behavior that I did not know was unacceptable is 100% unacceptable. That doesn't mean that I exhibited it, but I just didn't know. So if I seen someone exhibiting that behavior, I didn't know any better. I didn't know, but now I have that knowledge, and I go, hey, bro, hey, dude, don't catcall that chick around me, man. Don't do that. You know, now that I have that knowledge, I can go, that's not cool, bro. That's not cool. You know, like, hey, no, dude, she's drunk. I'm going to take her home. That's not cool. That's not consensual. You know, those kind of things. So that goes back to the same thing. It's like, okay, maybe we're not just being sensitive. Maybe you just have to accept the fact that the behavior you're exhibiting is kind of messed up, but now you have that ability to change. But instead they just go, you're sensitive, you know? And then the pride thing too, like, I'm going to talk on this, that all lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. They do. They 100% do. Every single life on this planet matters. I agree with that. All lives matter. But I'll break this down. All lives cannot matter if Black lives don't matter. If Black lives don't matter, then by default, all lives do not matter, because Black lives fall under the umbrella of all lives. So all you're doing at that point, and let me point this out because a lot of people don't notice, all you're doing is saying, hey, what I say is more valuable and more important than what you have to say. And that's dangerous, because all it's going to do is piss me off. And now you've provoked an emotion out of me. And now I'm going to tune out every productive thing you have. So I really want people, and this is of all walks of life. Screw it, I'm not even directing this at white people. Stop using all lives matter. Because yes, it's true. Yes, it's 100% true. But all you're doing is basically saying, shut up, my opinion's worth more than yours. And that is not okay. Because we all know that all lives freaking matter, dude. Everybody knows that, dude. Otherwise, we wouldn't be out there fighting. I mean, we wouldn't have protested for Brock Turner. We wouldn't be protesting for the 71-year-old man who got knocked over. You know what I mean? Obviously, all lives matter. And all you're doing is just, it's a pride. It's like you want to feel more important. And that's exactly what we're fighting about. That's exactly what we're fighting about. And it's like, no, dude, just take a step back and go, hey, you know what? It doesn't always have to be about me. I can say,
100%.
hey, bro,
man,
I got your back. You know, I got your back, dude.
I want to dissect what you just said in many different parts because you just made so many good points in one. I actually might pull a clip of that, and that might be like the teaser for the thing because it was so good. Really, the sentiment "all lives matter." When that is true, it won't even need to be said. You wouldn't have to say
it's
that.
Redundant. It's redundant.
You should look at that in the way of like you need air to survive. Like you wouldn't have to say it if that was the case. 100% true. And now I want to go to a couple different aspects. So like the guilt thing. I think you're spot on because I'll tell you something that I've always almost felt weird about because I feel like I've never done things racially motivated my entire life. Maybe because like I grew up right around like you said, a mixed group of people. I've traveled all around the world. I just see people as people. I have no feelings of white guilt at all. And sometimes I have people that'll yell at me that are like, you know, well, you should have them. And here's the thing is I can't comprehend it because like if you knew of someone that murdered my father, but you did not murder my father, even if that there was some similarity. Let's say like, oh yeah, well, he was the same age or the same color as you were, so why don't you feel bad? I can't tie a feeling to something that I didn't do. I can't feel like I'm not dumb. I know throughout history people have oppressed people, but like I have never done something to harm someone racially motivated. So I don't feel like guilt, but I 100% can see problems in society where I go like, this is racially motivated. This is not good. This is injustice, which goes to the second point that you talked about where it's like beyond white guilt, there's people with pride issues that all of a sudden they just want their version of it to be the reality. Like, oh, well, actually, Black Lives Matter shouldn't be said because every life matters. If every life mattered, you wouldn't have a single person outside saying, hey, guys, our lives matter, because it wouldn't have to be spoken. You know what I mean?
It's not necessary, yeah.
100%. So privilege is another thing that you brought up. If you don't believe that privileges exist in this country or for different skin colors and stuff, that's just ignorant. It goes back to your idea of as soon as I educate you, okay, you don't believe privilege exists. You or I could show people that privilege exists irrefutably in 10 minutes. We could present things to say, this is privilege, it does exist, and you were incorrect. And then at that point, if they choose not to acknowledge it, that's a responsibility on them. The way you broke down education versus responsibility, not only do I think that's crucial, I think it also shows how vital education is to trying to combat and separate good people from bad people, right? Because like you said, if someone just doesn't know, and then you're like, hey, here's information. If you didn't know what a rear naked choke was and you harm someone, okay. But if I had already taught you exactly how you can take someone's life from them and you use that is 100% on you. So I want to be clear though about privilege. I think privilege has varying levels about everything. So I was in Africa with Josh Parisian for a week. The way that the people lived there was one of the people that we came across. Josh and I were walking. We're about probably, I don't know, we took maybe a 2-3 mile walk. We saw a man dying of thirst by the side of the road, white foam in his mouth, begging, having a hard time saying words. All he wanted was water. And it felt like if you took a knife and stuck it in my heart, I'm like, this man is not asking for money. He is not asking. This man wants water to survive. And me and Josh, we were like, we literally have to do something right now. So we walked all the way back to the hotel on the spot. We told the hotel people, hey, because they were only giving us like 1 or 2 water bottles. We go, hey, our fight team that's here, we need a giant case of water. We need it for our hotel room. We need as many as water as you can give us. We're going to be trained outside in the sun. We need it. They gave us it. We walked all the way back to give this guy water because him and I are like, can you imagine that could be us? If we were born here, if James Gray was born in Africa to that family, I would have had a different name. That would have been me standing on the side of the road saying, please, can I have water? Okay. So that is a level of privilege that he was given, right? So I don't have that struggle. What I mean, when I say privilege, I mean his circumstances led him to that. Just by being born in America, you are, unless you're at the truly bottom, maybe 1 or 2 or 3%, you won't understand what that man endures on a regular basis. So you have a level of privilege just by being in this country. Now, if all of a sudden your skin color was different, you have a level of privilege. Now, maybe you were born to a wealthy family, you have a level of privilege. So I don't think when I talk about privilege, I don't think it's just necessarily white or black. I think privilege is any factor that gives you a heads up or like an advantage over somebody else. And to not acknowledge that is insulting. If you were born to a wealth, like let's say I was born to an extremely impoverished family where my father was super abusive, my mother was a drug addict, the level of privilege that I experienced may be less than if you were born to a wealthy, highly educated family that gave you opportunity. And then you could flip it. It's not just about color, it's about privilege in general. Now, that does not mean that there are not absolute factors that someone of color will experience that a white person will not. So we have that privilege. But when you look at the term privilege in general, it should be, let's be honest about the factors that people face in society and how that privilege relates to the likelihood of their success, of their happiness, of all of these different things, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, but I look at privilege as just like, yeah, absolutely. If I was born with this complexion of skin, I have a certain privilege. But if you were born at a different wealth status, you have that privilege. I was born in an area with no education, or the quality of education was extremely slow. You were put in a private school, you have a better privilege. Maybe I had both parents and you had one. I had a privilege. Like, is that what we mean when we talk about privileges that people need to acknowledge?
I mean, yes and no. And like, there's been a meme that's going around, and I'm just going to quote that because I can't explain it any better. You know, yes, those are all different. You know, there's classes, privileges, there's all types of that. You know, I think one of the things that people need to understand is like when we talk about white privilege, we're not saying that you automatically start off better than us. We're just saying that it doesn't mean your life is any better because you're white. It just means that your skin color isn't one of the things making your life more difficult. That's all it means, you know.
That makes sense.
And like when you really think about that sentence, it's not offensive. It's just saying, hey, bro, I'm not saying that you have it better off just because you're white. I'm just saying that, you know, I go through some extra shit because I'm black. And that's really all it is, which if we look back systematically, you know, systematically as a whole, we have always been divided. You know, I mean, hell, the fact that we have to fill out race on forms is absolutely disgusting because our race is American. We have cultural backgrounds, absolutely, but our race is American. Like, for example, the term African American and Caucasian itself is just absolutely racist because I'm not African American. I'm not from Africa. My family's from Barbados. You know what I mean? Like, so now Charlize Theron, Keanu Reeves, Elon Musk, those are African Americans. The only thing I am an American with a West Indian background. For example, I have no idea what your cultural background is, but for some reason, we've lumped in everyone who looks similar to your skin tone as Caucasian, just the same way that anyone who looks at me, they're immediately gonna go, that's a black guy, and it's like, haha, joke's on you. But anyways, you know, so we've already been living in a society that already said we're going to cut you guys in half. And honestly, that goes with Spanish American, because we're all just, if you were born here, dude, you are an American citizen. Like, I'll take, for example, Alistair Overeem, one of my favorite fighters of all time. What do they call him? The Swede. They don't call him the African Swedish. They just call him the Swede. You know what I mean? And he's as big and black as they come, dude. You know what I mean? So it's not even like 100%. He doesn't look it. He's, you know, so we are the only, I mean, one of the only ones. I can't say we're the only, but we already break down and classify ourselves. And then we break it down even further with middle class, all of that. And it's just, we're so used to it that we have to break free of that because we're all just American, dude.
100%, man. Think about this. It's right back to that. It's not different teams. It's people against the way we're living. It is literally people against the way that we are living and the way that we're taught by whatever establishments or whatever people in our life. we need to look at that and evaluate. No, we're people. You call me anything other than an American, I'm gonna say you're wrong. I'm an American. I'm a human being. You know what I mean? And Jay, like this conversation, I don't want to keep you here forever. And you know, I want you to know this, dude. Like, I appreciate this way more than you realize, because if our words can have power to move the world in this direction, can you just imagine in your mind for a second how beautiful the world actually could be if people just started making it simpler than what we do? If you stop looking at the team divides, you stop looking at, if I'm a liberal, everyone on the other side must be a piece of shit. If I'm white, black people must have this. If I'm black, white people must think this. When you just go, you know what? Let's figure out really where the problems are in society. And let's be honest, if black people are systematically being oppressed, we absolutely need to change it, because that's your brother. That's someone exactly like you that was born to a different set of circumstances. And how, if you believe in freedom and you believe in equality, how can you allow that person to live a life here in America without wanting to do better for them? And I think, dude, dialogue like this and demanding this out of our leaders, you know what? Because I'm sure there's very good people on your side, but a lot of them put their flag in the ground. And if you are not on their side of the flag, you are their enemy. And that mindset stops things like that. I bet you if a lot of people were to just listen to our dialogue, I bet you we've clarified things where, you know, maybe let's say a white person was thinking a certain thing. They hear this dialogue and they go, oh, that kind of makes sense. The way he broke that down, that isn't fueled by hate. He's literally just saying, hey, man, there are certain things that I experience that you don't. That's all I'm saying. And the only reason I don't want you to say all lives matter to me is we wouldn't have to say that if they did. It would be that simple. It'd be like saying, hey, remember to eat today, brother, because like you have to eat to survive. You know what I mean? You don't have to say things that are just known. So, and vice versa. Someone that's black that listens to this conversation from me might go, wow, I might have stereotyped James the wrong way. I might have thought that he was this or that or the other thing. And by having dialogue, you know what? That guy's not that different than me. He's a person on his pursuit of happiness that wants people to live the right way. Man, I want to live to a time in life where people embrace one another as a human race and say, you know what? We're doing better than we ever have in history. We might still have problems, but we are doing better than ever. And that time of life, man, where we embrace the ideology that like we are all one, that's a world that I would gladly raise a child in, that I would be like, you know what? We did this and we have the potential for doing it. Because like you said at the very beginning of this conversation, there are way more of us than people running the show. And if all of the us get together and say, we demand a better world for all human beings, it's unstoppable. And you know what?
I agree.
So I appreciate you so much, man. I appreciate this conversation. Maybe we can have more, because I enjoyed this so much. And like,
yeah, why not? There doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be just one.
No, of course not. I haven't done nearly the research into, the oppression, different things like this, as I did with, say, COVID, and I want to keep this fight up. And you know what? I have a platform and I'm a very good speaker and I'm good at bringing people together. So the more we get people on board to say, hey, we're doing this thing and we're doing it the right way and we're going to remove emotion. And you know what? We're going to be honest. If I made a statement that said at one point, let's say I said, go out and do this, that, and the other thing. And when my emotion was gone, I come back and go, hey, you know what? I want to clarify that. I want to be clear. Here's how we move in a better direction. We're going to achieve it, man. And we can achieve it. And it's worth fighting.
I agree. And I'm not going to stop fighting. If I could just summarize my entire thing for everyone. This is just 100%. For everyone listening. Information, guys. Like, I can't stress how much knowledge is important, because do research before you post shit on your Facebook. Because sometimes you're posting very inaccurate things. Like, I've seen a lot of things shared where it's like, it'll say like, oh, the protesters are planning to come down and burn a rural community. If you don't have facts to support that, don't post that, dude. That's very irresponsible. You know what I mean? If you have a post that says, oh, the National Guard is coming down to execute people, if you don't have actionable intel, don't post that. It's irresponsible, because guess what? The people who are posting those things, they want us to keep being mad at each other. So they're going to keep feeding stuff back and forth just to keep us pissed off, because that person's going to be like, oh, well, they're not going to take my shit in my home. You know, and then we're gonna be like, oh man, dude, well, you're not gonna fucking stop me from protesting. It just creates more anger. So please research information, learn about history, learn about the future, learn about what we could do. Knowledge, for example, black people, they really feel that, you know, white people take up the majority of the system. They're not wrong, okay? Fine. But you know what we need to do then? All the people who have the means to help, start helping with education. Start helping our guys go to law school. Start helping our guys be doctors. Start helping our black people be politicians. We want to affect change in the system. Well, guess what? Let's start infiltrating it. You know what I mean? On the other side, okay, let's start understanding history. Let's start helping. You know what I mean? Like if you want to help it move forward, knowledge, information, going, okay, let me learn about my history. Let me learn that civil rights, for example, wasn't 300 years ago. That was 45 years ago. That's Mima and Papa. You know what I'm saying? Like that wasn't that long ago. Let's start doing research, information. I can't stress how much information is. Do your research on stuff before you post it, because all you're doing is just creating more hysteria. And that's what they want, dude. They don't want us shaking hands, man. They don't want, but do your research, because then you'll realize that, hey, guess what, dude? The Confederate flag is not cool. For an example, you know what I mean? Like that shit's not cool, dog. Like I understand that it's a symbol of our history, but guess what? Especially if you live above the Mason-Dixon line, there's just no reason why you should even be flying it. Because if it's a symbol of Southern pride and you live above the Mason-Dixon line, what Southern pride are you celebrating? You know, just to keep it just to be brass tacks, but that goes on both sides. Education and knowledge is what will bring us out of these dark times. You know what I mean? For that side, sorry, even the cops, more education, more training, education and knowledge is what will save this country. And every side needs, I mean, sure, maybe the roles in what education we receive are different, but ultimately education and knowledge is the path to this new world that we're gonna get it. Okay. There may be fires along the way, but any great revolution had some fires along the way. But this is, and it's exactly like I posted, you probably didn't see my Facebook post, but this is our revolutionary war. This is what it is. The people have finally had enough, and we are coming together and say, no, we want change. So the best way for us to do that is just increasing our knowledge, having these uncomfortable conversations. Look, I'll be honest. If you're white, if you're having uncomfortable questions, you can ask a black person in a way that's respectful. You can say, hey, I want to ask you a question, not in offense, but because I want to truly understand, would you be comfortable with me answering that? And if they say no, okay, they might still be hurt. They might try somebody else. And as a black person, ask questions. Go, hey, you know, you as a white guy, why do you feel this doesn't exist? Or why do you know what I mean? Have these uncomfortable dialogues so we can move forward and increase our knowledge as a whole, because education is what's going to save us.
I actually think a lot of people would realize that dialogue's not that uncomfortable. I bet you they would start to see more similarities in each other than there are differences, because we're told to focus on our differences. But you know what? You sit down and speak to the man next to you and forget about the separation that you might see or that you were told to believe. You're going to see another man. You're going to see another person that cares about their future, that cares about their family, that wants a better life. And if you don't, they might not be a good person. If the person thinks, we should just kill people, and then you know what? That's not the person to take advice from. Education, information, We're going to change the future. I'm on board 1,000%. Like I said, I appreciate you, man. So you know what? Let's get this. I'll get this thing up. I'll get the video done. I'll shoot it over to you. And then maybe we have some more dialogues as we progress. You know what I mean? We're going to speak for people. So I appreciate you, brother, so much. And it's good to see you. It's good to see you're doing well.
Same, brother. We'll do this again, man. I feel like, you know, we need to start having more. Hell, you know, maybe we need to have some more people getting involved with our talks. Man, you know, just really keep the dialogue
thing about Zoom. We can actually get like 10 or 15 or 20 people, and it just shows them on the screen, and we could all speak together and say, hey, you know, this person's on this side of a political argument, this person's on this side of a religious argument, this person's on this skin color. We show that human beings can come together and say, it's time, guys. We are going to lead a revolution. It's going to lead to the greatest country we've ever known, and that is worth fighting for.
Exactly, dude. You hit it on the nail, man. Well, we'll do this again,
appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. I took up half your Sunday here, but you know what?
Nah, it's cool, man. I love it, dude. All right, bro.
Man.
I'll talk to you later.
I appreciate you very much.
Thanks, bro.